I'm James Himm Mitchell, and this is Your Week in Tarot, starting January the 18th, 2016. So stay tuned. And here we are with the cards on the table. And before I get started with this week's reading, I just want to take a moment and thank you for watching my videos, for liking my videos, for taking the time to share your thoughts in the comment section below on my YouTube channel, or taking the time to send me a personal email sharing with me how much the readings resonate with you and sharing with me some of your experiences that have happened to you in the course of the week pertaining to the reading. So I just want to take a moment to say thank you for that. I also want to acknowledge my subscribers. I've had a number of new subscribers in the course of the week from last week's reading to this week. So I just want to say thank you to all my subscribers, both old and new. I want to thank you for allowing me to become a regular part of your world. And I want to thank you for stepping into mine. All of your encouragement and support of the work is motivating me and inspires me and keeps me encouraged to continue doing what I'm doing. So I just want to take a moment to say thank you for that. And so now shifting back to the reading, the deck that's going to be assisting me for this week's reading is the Fairy Tarot cards by Doreen Virtue, Radleigh Valentine, and Howard David Johnson. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the deck in hand and I'm going to shuffle. And as I shuffle, the question for these general weekly readings is basically, what do we need to know for the week ahead in terms of any potentials and possibilities? And then what I do is, while I'm shuffling, I'm allowing cards to stick out. And I'm going to draw 3. The first card is going to be for the beginning of the week, which is Monday, Tuesday. The second card is going to be the middle of the week. That's going to represent Wednesday, Thursday. And then for the end of the week, which is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, is going to be our third card. So these are the cards. I'm going to take a moment to get them lined up in the shot, like so. And I always start the reading off by looking at the card that was at the bottom of the deck. So I'm turning the deck over, and this card is going to serve as a foundation or the basis for the week. So this card is Ego. It is a major arcana card. So a major arcana card, when it appears, usually represents an important issue or event. It can also represent something that is geared towards our spiritual growth and development. So it could be something of a spiritual nature or something of a psychological nature, but it's all designed for our spiritual growth and development. So when Ego shows up, we are being encouraged with this card to look at the ways in which we consider ourselves to be stuck. The card reads the illusion of being trapped. So if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling trapped in a situation and you're feeling like you can't get out of it, that may be false thinking or error thinking that's allowing you to stay where you are. And it's not the truth. The other thing for me about ego is ego can represent working through our own sense of limitations or restrictions, the way we sabotage ourselves, the way we trip ourselves up. So we may be encouraged to be looking at those things this week. Also, too, we are maybe being encouraged to look at the ways that we have been conditioned and programmed to believe certain things about ourselves or our lives, things of that nature, and we're being encouraged to maybe rethink some of those. In our situations or exchanges with other people this week, ego sometimes can represent people coming from a place of unenlightenment, a lack of conscious awareness, sometimes doing things because they just simply don't know any better. I'm seeing in my head the late Maya Angelou. And when I see this card, sometimes it's like, when people know better, they do better. But until they know better, they're doing the best that they can. So sometimes we have to allow ourselves to get past the expression. And when I say the expression, that means whatever it is they're doing. We have to get to a place where we can look beyond that and just say, that is just something that they're doing because they don't know any better. So if, for example, you've been hurt by another person, then the ego card would be encouraging you to say that they just don't know any better. There's a saying that hurting people hurt people. So if you experience that, because that's the thing that just first came to my mind, if you're experiencing that this week, that may be an opportunity for you to look at that just coming from a place of the person maybe not knowing any better, or people acting out from their level of consciousness. And so sometimes we have to, and it's not in a way to give them a pass or to make their behavior okay. I'm not condoning that, but I'm also suggesting that people operate from the place of where their consciousness is, and that's not right or wrong, good or bad. It's not a judgment. It just is what it is. And so sometimes we have to pay attention to that. And that also works for us too. We are always operating from our own level of consciousness. So going again with the ego card can just be about working through whatever it is that we believe is creating limitation and restriction in our lives. So that's the ego card. So now at the beginning of the week, which is Monday, Tuesday, we have the Hermit. Okay, so now the Hermit is another major arcana card. And so I love the fact that it comes after ego, because the Hermit, for me, is a card that represents wisdom gained through experience. So we may be needing to look at some of these challenging experiences, especially if we believe that we're stuck, or that we are limited or restricted or trapped in some shape, form, or fashion. The Hermit is asking us to look at the bigger picture with that. Like, what is that experience teaching us? The Hermit is a person who has achieved some level of enlightenment. It's very funny that I said the ego was about, being unenlightened or being in the dark. The Hermit is just the opposite. It's about stepping into the light. If you notice that the fairy on the card is holding a lantern, so that represents shedding light on a situation. This is the card that represents a search for meaning. So we may be at the beginning of the week asking about, what is the meaning of our lives, or, what is the meaning of experiences that we're having. But it's all designed for self-awareness. The Hermit walks the path alone. So it could be that you're moving through a situation, or you're trying to understand a situation, and you may be asked to look at it from a standpoint of what it is it's teaching you and you alone. Sometimes when we are in a collective experience, we sometimes can take the task on ourselves of trying to come up with what it means for everyone involved, or what everybody's perspective lesson is. And that may not be the case. The case with the Hermit is, it's about what is it that the experience is teaching you about you. So I'm seeing that. The Hermit is also a card that represents making a commitment to your spiritual growth. And that could be in the form of you find a teacher who's teaching something that resonates with you. You embark on a course or a study. And if that is the case, then the Hermit would say it's this serious study of a topic of interest to you. Now, it could also be that you have information or knowledge that you are being asked to share with the world, because, again, going back to the lantern and the light here, this is about shining your light. But the Hermit is different in terms of, there are two types of teachers. And so the Hermit is a teacher who leads by example, or what I call is demonstration, which means that they have taken their spiritual practice, whatever that is for them, and they have created their life around their practice. And so people see them as a demonstration and representation of that spirituality, that path. So this week you're being asked to look at what is your spiritual practice demonstrating to your world about you? You know, I call this letting your life be your witness. So that is the Hermit. Moving into the middle of the week, which is Wednesday, Thursday, we have the Six of Winter. Okay, so now the Six of Winter is a card that can represent making a transition. So usually the transition starts off where we're in a difficult space or we're having a difficult experience and we're moving through it. This card is about moving through the transition to a place where things become easier, you know, a burden is lifted, difficulties, you know, subside, things of that nature. But it represents moving through that transitional state. It can also be that going along with what I said about certain situations with the Hermit, you know, especially about learning from experience, this card carries a similar kind of energy. And so it asks us to be objective about some of the things that we are experiencing. Now, since I'm saying the word transition, and you know that sometimes I see angelic energies or an angel who wants to step in, I see this card going with the idea of transition, two angels. The first is Archangel Adriel, who is the angel that's assigned with change and transition. So if you're experiencing a transition, you might want to consider calling on Archangel Azrael to help assist you through that transition, moving it from a place of difficulty perhaps to a place of ease and your burdens being lifted. And then with that, also Archangel Michael, because Archangel Michael, especially now that I have this card, the Six of Winter, above the Ego card, if you're carrying the idea or the belief that you are trapped or stuck in a situation, there may be some energetic cords that need to be cut, and you can call on Archangel Michael to cut those cords, because the combination of ego and the Hermit can represent something of a karmic nature or a karmic bond or a soul contract. If you believe in those types of things, that could be some energy that needs to be cut. You know, you need to be released or set free, because the ego could represent that idea of being connected to somebody, and in that would be something unhealthy perhaps and needing to be cut from that. So any unhealthy tendencies or any unhealthy connections that you need to move away from on your own, and there may be some fear about doing it on your own, which would be the Hermit, then ask Archangel Michael to help you cut the cords and to also assist you with whatever the next step might be. So again, the Six of Winter is about moving through a transition. So in the middle of the week, we may be faced with some kind of burden or difficulty, or we may be seeing the other side of it, because sometimes this card can represent the light at the end of the tunnel. It says positive changes are on their way. So just know that if you're in that experience, just know that positive changes are on the way. And it's very interesting, as I'm looking at the card, I noticed that the Hermit has a lantern lighting the way, and then the ferryman here, or the fairy angel here on the Six of Winter in the boat, also has a light shining the way. So it could be that you receive some guidance, some insight, some light enlightenment that's going to help move you forward, both Monday, Tuesday, and in the middle of the week, Wednesday, Thursday. So now moving to the end of the week, we have the Princess of Winter. So now we have two major arcana cards, and we have two cards from the Suit of Winter. The Suit of Winter can represent challenges and problems, but with the idea of problems that you are looking for solutions, because it represents problem solving. And it can also represent decision making, because the Suit of Winter represents ideas, thoughts, and beliefs. So here it's very interesting. The Princess of Winter, at the end, princesses in tarot usually represent a learning stage of development. So it's very interesting that I had the Hermit card at the beginning of the week, which I said was about learning through experience. And then here we have the Princess, which would mean new information. So if we take the time to step back from our situation, ask the question, what is this experience teaching me about me and moving through it and getting to the other side. The other side of that will be you will gain some new information that you didn't have before, that you needed that experience to teach you. So sometimes when we're looking at the experience, we sometimes can wonder, why am I having this experience? Because it's designed to teach you something, and that may have been the only way you would have learned the lesson. So the Princess of Winter is about acquiring new information, new ideas. Now the thing about it is that sometimes when we acquire a new idea or a new way of thinking, we want to run with it. I'm seeing the image in my head of like running with scissors. And so sometimes we have to be careful about running with a new idea because it's new to us, and we may not be able to explain it to another person, because sometimes the flip side of this is like when we're sharing an idea, this card, the Princess of Winter, is like the inquisitive person, or I always liken it to a child who always asks the profound question when being given information is why? So, you may be asking why. If you're asking why is something happening, at the end of the week, you may get the answer to your why. But if you're sharing new information and it's new to you and you're trying to explain it to other people, they may ask you why, and you may not have enough knowledge, because this is new knowledge, you may have enough knowledge to adequately answer those questions. Now, the Princess of Winter is also the type of person who's very curious, very inquisitive, things of that nature. So it could be that whatever information gained sets you on a new path to acquire more information, because she can represent having a thirst for knowledge. So I'm reading the card and it says information that can help you, but which may also be difficult to hear. So that when you're asking why and Spirit gives you the answer, whether it's through another person, whether it's through reflective time, meditation time, time alone in solitude, you may not like the answer, but the answer is designed for you to grow as a result. So another thing about princesses is that they can represent news or messages we need to have. So sometimes what I do is I draw another card. So I'm doing that now, I'm shuffling. I'm asking, what other message do we need to have that pertains to this card? And when this card jumped out, so I'm going to go with this. And this card is the Nine of Summer. Ooh, I love this. Okay, so Nine of Summer is a card, and I'll put it more towards the middle. The Nine of Summer is what we know or consider in tarot to be the wish card. So this can represent that a wish is going to be fulfilled or granted. The top line in the card reads, wishes come true. And then it says, dreams fulfilled. The image has a woman who is getting her wishes fulfilled from her fairy godmother. So it could be somebody steps in and serves that role. So it could be an actual person who could be you consider to be your fairy godmother or fairy godfather. But it could just represent that a wish that you are looking to have met or fulfilled will be granted. This card can represent celebration. So you could also look at it like she's getting dressed up to go out to a party. Sometimes this card represents parties, celebrations, good times. With that, it also warns you that if you're going to go out and you're going to have a good time, be mindful of being too self-indulgent, because that brings me back to the ego card. Sometimes the ego card is like guilty pleasures, and as I'm saying that, I'm hearing a song in my head, and the title of the song is Too Much of a Good Thing. So if you're going to experience that, don't let it become too much of a good thing. So, but when the Nine of Summer is attached to the outcome, or at the end of a week or end of a reading, it can represent a wish being fulfilled or granted. Now the 9 is being repeated, so the 9 is the number of attainment. Again, wisdom gained through experience. And so the wisdom gained through the experience could be something of an emotional nature. Summer represents emotions, feelings, and it could also lead to a sense of deeper spiritual growth. So these are your cards for the week. And so now we're going to take a moment and look at the numbers of the cards and see what the overall lesson for the week is. All right, so our first card is the Hermit, and it's numbered 9. Our second card, Six of Winter, is 6. And then the princess, for me in tarot, some people don't assign the court cards, which would be the princess, prince, queen, and king, a number. But for me, this is number 11. So we have 9 plus 6 plus 11 equals 26. And so there are only 22 major arcana cards, so a number over 22 needs to be added together, the digits, and then reduced. So we're going to have 2 and 6, and that's going to reduce to 8. And so the 8th card in the deck is Justice. So I'm just looking for the card. But when Justice comes up, and I like the fact that Justice is the overall lesson, because when it shows up after the Ego card, it can suggest that there will be some form of vindication for some type of wrongdoing. So if you've been in an experience in which you feel that you've been done wrong, that you've been treated unfairly, that you have been the victim of something problematic or challenging, then Justice is a good card to have because it represents vindication. So it represents and the beauty about it is that in that sense, because when it has happened to me and I have had the experience where I believed that somebody was doing me wrong, and again, coming from a place of now I can look back on it, and coming from a place of not knowing any better, or from a place of, just where their consciousness is at, Justice is the universal law of cause and effect. So it just represents that divine law will be at work, and that keep in mind that the energy that we put out is also the energy that comes back to us. So it could be like if somebody puts energy out in a way that's harmful to you, at some point it circles back and comes back to them. And so the beauty about that is that you don't have to be involved in that. You don't have to have your hands in that. I've seen it happen in my own life where people who have, done something that I consider to be harmful to me, it's the boomerang effect. It does come back around. And the beauty about it is I didn't have anything to do with it. It's like I didn't take any action on my own to kind of get back at them, let's say. There's no need for that. I mean, at some point, they will get, they'll get their due. They'll get the reaction to their course of action, because that's I'm seeing the law of cause and effect in that regard. It says that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So there's that energy going on too. But the only thing with that is, and this is where you may have to detach and let go, is like if you want to be there and see it when it happens, sometimes this card says, it's going to happen and you may not need to see it. That may be something that you don't need to have as a part of your experience. But sometimes we can get to the place where we we want to see justice being done, but you may not be anywhere near the situation when it happens. So you may have to work on letting that go. But justice in another light is, we're being faced with a decision, and we may need more information about the decision. Justice in that regard represents looking at a situation from all possible sides and angles. And isn't that funny with the Hermit card next to it, because it's shining a light. Sometimes, and the Hermit is also standing at the top of a mountain, usually in various depictions of the card. And so with that, if you're, let's say, hypothetically or metaphorically or figuratively speaking, you're standing at the mountain and you're shining a light down, you can see things from a higher perspective, which is justice, a higher perspective than you would if you were down at the bottom of the mountain. Things look totally different when you're at the top of the mountain because you get to see the bigger picture. And so justice is asking us this week, if we're mired in something, how can we step back? Because this card is about a logical, rational, analytical approach. How can we take a step back, be more objective, like I said, with the Six of Winter underneath it? How can we be more objective and look at it from a place of maybe being detached? Maybe we're too close to the situation. We need to take a step back, but we need to look at it all possible perspective and sides so we can come to a different conclusion because this card represents once you become well informed, once you have taken the time to look at it from all possible sides, then you're able to make a decision. Like the Princess of Winter, where I said that was new information coming in, but it may not be enough. It may just be enough to get you going to kind of investigate and look into it more deeply, because the Princess of Winter is also a card that represents investigation. So it could be you just get set on the path to investigate further so you can have all the information you need to make a well-informed choice or decision. You know, going with the ego card, you know, the sense of being trapped and restricted and limited, or wanting to remove yourself from an unhealthy situation, then justice would suggest standing up for your convictions. You know, it's about doing the right thing. So whatever the right thing is for you, then you're being asked to stand up in that. You know, and sometimes, you know, the right thing may be you need to leave an unhealthy situation. Justice represents that whatever the right thing is, it's the right and just thing for everyone involved. So if, for example, you're leaving an unhealthy situation, then it's not only right for you, but believe it or not, it'll be right for the people and the environment that you're leaving behind. You know, again, this card is about morals and ethics. So, you know, going with the ego card being unhealthy, you know, if part of it may be because you no longer resonate with your place where you are at in your life right now, those people and that environment, you know, no longer resonates with you because your morals and your ethics may have changed. You have made a shift in that. And it's not about you judging those people if they choose to stay in that. Don't judge them. You know, you're just ready to move on, you know, and you move on and you bless them and you just release them and you let yourself be released, you know, going back to Archangel Michael and cutting the cords, you know, you also release yourself and then you move on. Now, the other thing with justice, and I'm looking at justice in the Princess of Winter especially, there may be some of you watching this video who may be either embroiled in a legal matter, or that you may be faced with a legal matter, because justice can represent legal matters and things being in the court system. The Princess of Winter in that regard is about the idea of either some form of investigation, so there may be somebody assigned to the case that needs to do some investigative work. It could also be that somebody will be served a subpoena or a summons of some kind, but it's all with the idea of gaining more information. So I don't know if that's going to resonate with anyone here watching the video, but if it does, somebody may be served a summons or subpoena, you know, in regards to moving a case forward, and its purpose is to gain information. And then sometimes too, the Hermit card with that is about counsel. So if it could be like, you know, legal counsel. And when the Hermit card shows up in that regard, it's about, you know, considering the advice of legal counsel. Now, I have to put a disclaimer at this point, because I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not affiliated with any kind of court system or legal thing. So I'm just seeing that. So this is not legal advice. It's just for your consideration about what you might experience. So, but justice, again, as a lesson card, it's about looking at a situation from all sides, weighing the pros and the cons, taking all the evidence, quote, and I'm using finger quotes when I say that, all the evidence into account so you can make the best, right, and just decision, not just for yourself, but for everybody else involved. And with that being a number 8 card, 8 is a number of personal power. So it could be that you are doing the right thing for you, by you, in an effort to reclaim your own sense of personal power. The power that you may believe that you've lost, going back to the ego card, because you got mired into something that was unhealthy. So you stepping up and reclaiming your power moves you out of that situation. So again, summing up the cards for the week, the Hermit card represents, you know, a search for meaning, you know, wisdom gained through experience. You may be at the beginning of the week asking yourself, what is this experience designed to teach me? And it could be about moving on and moving on alone. In the middle of the week, we may be faced with a an experience that may seem to start off difficult, and we will be making a transition, moving to the light at the end of the tunnel, the situation becoming easier. But with that, we may be asked to make some different choices, going with the 6 and taking a step back and being more objective. Again, with the Hermit card, it may be, again, asking yourself, what is this experience here to teach me? And how is it helping me move forward in my spiritual path? And then the Princess of Winter, like at the end of the week, we may gain that new information, and it also can serve as a starting point to investigate something further, to gain more information. You may get the answer to your why at the end of the week. So this has been your week in Tarot. I am James Himm Mitchell, and I look forward to sharing this space here with you again in our next video. And until then, have a tarot-tastic week and take care.